Jim. Thank all of you for coming. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. As a matter of fact, it's a pleasure to be any place. And it's certainly a privilege to be up here with these distinguished gentlemen on my left. I'm going to talk to you this morning primarily about Dr. Lloyd Shaw, Dr. Lloyd Pappy Shaw. He was known as Pappy because of his father figure of the students in his school, and also because he was a father figure to thousands of square dancers. He was often referred to as the father of modern American square dancing. Well, I'm not here to argue that point because certainly there were many others, Ray Smith, Herb Gregerson, etc., etc. But I spent 12 years with Pappy Shaw. I hasten to add, not all in the same grade. And so I'm going to talk about what I know about, and that's Pappy. I need to know a little bit about Pappy. He was an imposing figure, in spite of the limp that he had, which he acquired in an automobile accident 5 blocks from where I lived. He had a stare and a frown that could freeze you in your tracks. And yet he had a glint in his eye and a smile that could turn on the sunshine. He had a strong voice and he knew how to use it, although he was not much of a singer. He had boundless energy, boundless energy. The only person that could slow him down was a little, sweet little lady whose name was Dorothy Stott Shaw, his wife. And his wife would say on our long trips, "Lloyd, I think the children should rest a little bit." And by George, the children rested. Thank God. If it were not for her, we would not have survived some of the trips we took with Pappy. He had a very inquisitive mind. He was always searching for new things. And he had an absolute passion for giving the children in his school the best possible learning experiences that they could have. Learning experiences which applied to life. Well, Pappy was the principal of Cheyenne Mountain Schools, a little school sitting at the bottom of Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It was a small school. I say it was small. I graduated in 1940 with 26 other seniors. That was about an average graduating class. Pappy was principal of that school, kindergarten through high school. In addition to which he was an absolutely fabulous teacher. Pappy ran a tight ship. He was a disciplinarian in a good sense of the word. And yet he sponsored programs in his school which were unheard of then and are probably unheard of today. The school had a glider at one time. Upperclassmen would take the glider up to the mesa above the school, tow it up into the air, and glide around in it. The upperclassmen had a Model A club. They had stripped-down Model A's, and they'd go up on the mesa and race the Model A's, go up Cheyenne Canyon and drive through the gullies and through the brush, flip them over. Nobody was ever seriously injured or killed for some reason, but they had a lot of fun. The school put on a rodeo one year. Upperclassmen built the corral, built the chutes for the bucking horses, etc., etc. Can you imagine those activities like that going in schools today? Lawyers would be standing around rubbing their palms together, just waiting. But Pappy sponsored those kinds of programs. Incidentally, I have all of those things on videotape. The videotape is taken from a film which was shot with a 1930-something's camera. So it's kind of fun to watch in some places. Sometime we may have time to do that. Pappy, as I say, he was always looking for new things to do for his school. In about the mid-1930s, he felt that the kids in the school needed a different, new activity. The school was too small for a football team. Had a pretty good basketball team and a track team. Pappy wanted something that all the kids could do that was enjoyable, fun to do, and good exercise, and he introduced dancing. Not only square dancing, but all kinds of dancing into the school. Of course, square dancing took the lead. After all, Pappy was a student of Western history. He taught Western history in the school. He was a fabulous teacher. He had traveled throughout the West, and he had met many callers and old-time fiddlers and so forth, and he had made records of what they were doing. And so square dancing became a part of the school life. There was square dancing in the gymnasium during the lunch break. There was square dancing at all the various parties. Some of the parents of the students in the school had a square dance group which Pappy taught and called for. That activity grew to the point where the school developed an exhibition team of square dancers. That team was just like any other team. You competed to get on the team, and once you were on the team, you had to maintain certain standards. Pappy's standards, which were not easy, I'll tell you. Two great things happened in 1939 that really affected square dancing. First of all, Pappy wrote a book, Cowboy Dances. This book contained diagrams of squares, told you how to dance them, told you what the calls of the dances were, and even had some of the music for the calls. First time anything like that happened. Maybe the last time, I don't know. It's not a rare book. I know many of you have the book. On a personal note, I have the only book in the world which says, "To Herb and Erna, with happy memories of the days when you were bright stars on our Cheyenne Mountain Dancers, Lloyd." I guard that pretty carefully. Of course, there was square dancing before this. It was primarily rural, however, most generally known as barn dancing, and widely scattered. The publication of cowboy dances was like pouring gasoline on hot embers. There was an explosion. The other thing that happened in 1939 was that the Cheyenne School dancers were invited to the National Folk Festival in Washington, D.C. That was quite an honor for that small school. Of course, the invitation was accepted. We filed into the school bus with Don Barney, the school custodian, as driver, Teach Johnson, study hall teacher, as piano player, Pappy Shaw, and Dorothy Shaw. Took off across the country in a trip of over 5,000 miles. Of course, as we traveled, we stopped at every place that had any historical or educational significance. The stories of how Pappy got us into some of those places, even though they were closed, are interesting, but we don't have time to tell them. We stopped at the colleges and the university and similar institutions as we went across the country. I think our first stop was Kansas State University. And we exhibited and we taught. Our exhibition was 1 hour long. We did 30 minutes of New England quadrilles and so forth. We did 30 minutes of European dancing, Danish style dance, Russian kolomika. We did 30 minutes of Mexican dancing, Rabi Tapatio, Motlin Sheenis, and so forth. We did 30 minutes of square dancing. The teaching we did was square dance teaching. We did reach Washington, D.C. without too many unseen events. We stayed there in a rundown campground. Again, we don't have time to tell that story.